Most men try to win women with gifts, looks, or charm, and that's exactly why they're forgotten. But Machiavelli saw deeper. He knew something darker, something most men never understand. The goal isn't to be liked, it's to be unforgettable. Not by pleasing her, but by controlling what she feels when you're gone. In this video, you'll learn 9 dark psychological frameworks inspired by Machiavelli, designed to trigger obsession without saying a single word of flattery. No chasing, no performing, no begging for love. You'll learn how to become the man she can't explain, but also can't stop thinking about. Watch closely, because once you see how this works, you'll never play the game like an average man again. There's a quote by Machiavelli that most men ignore, not because it's wrong, but because it's uncomfortable. It is much safer to be feared than loved. At first, that sounds cruel, like something only a villain would believe. But look closely, not at what people say, but at what they do. Watch how women behave around different types of men, and suddenly, that sentence makes perfect sense. Love can feel warm, soft, kind. It's the emotion we all crave, but also the one we easily take for granted. When love is always there, always giving, always soft, it loses its weight. It becomes background noise. Safe, yes, but also forgettable. And here's where most men fall. They think love is enough. They believe that if they give more, show more, open up more, she'll value it. But what happens? She stops feeling it. Because what is freely given, without challenge, holds no power. Now, enter fear. Not the kind that hurts. Not yelling. Not control. Not violence. That's weakness trying to look like strength, and women can smell it. Real fear is when a man's boundaries are so firm she feels them without him saying a word. He doesn't need to raise his voice. He doesn't need to argue. He doesn't need to explain his worth. He simply moves away, and the silence teaches her what words never could. This man doesn't chase. He doesn't explain why he was hurt. He doesn't beg for her to stay. He simply lets her feel the absence, and that absence hits harder than any emotional outburst. Because the moment she realizes he's serious, the game changes. She knows he won't break his own rules just to keep her. She knows that if she disrespects him, she loses him. And that's when attraction becomes obsession. Not because he gave her more, but because he was willing to give nothing when his values were crossed. That is fear. Not the fear of a man, but the fear of losing a man she can't control. And here's the psychological secret. Most women aren't obsessed with being loved. They're obsessed with the man who doesn't need their love to feel complete. That's why women chase the man who walks away. That's why they respect the one who doesn't fold. That's why they keep thinking about the man who never begged. He wasn't mean. He wasn't cruel. He was just unshakable. He had something 99% of men don't, standards that weren't for sale. So when Machiavelli said, "It is safer to be feared than loved," he wasn't rejecting love. He was teaching you that respect must come first. That without the fear of loss, love becomes lazy. And that the deepest desire doesn't come from what you give, but from what you're willing to take away when it's not valued. So remember this. She may love you. She may enjoy your company. But if she doesn't fear losing you, you're replaceable. Yet if she knows, deep down, that you won't stay where you aren't respected, you'll never have to ask for her attention again. Because she'll be the one fighting to earn yours. That's not cruelty. That's psychological gravity. That's dark attraction. And that is the power of fear over love. Machiavelli once said something brutally simple and terrifyingly true. It is not necessary to be good. It is necessary to. That one sentence breaks the spell most men live under. Because from childhood, we're trained in a lie. That if you're kind, loyal, hardworking, and honest, people will respect you. Women will desire you. The world will reward you. But it won't. Because the world doesn't see your truth. It sees your presentation. You can be loyal. You can be intelligent. You can have deep values and noble intent. But if you show up with weak posture, an uncertain tone, and anxious energy, no one will feel your worth. Especially not a woman. Because female attraction doesn't begin with facts. It begins with perception. Not what are you, but what do I feel when I'm around you? She's not analyzing your logic. She's scanning your energy. How you walk. How you speak. How you react when tested. And that's where image becomes power. This isn't about lying. It's not about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about framing. Because humans don't respond to truth, they respond to what feels true. And if you don't control how you're seen, someone else, Her emotions, her biases, her past will define you for her. So what does this mean in action? When you feel unsure, stand like a man who is certain. When you feel anger, speak like a man who controls fire. When you want to chase, do nothing. Let her come toward you. Because in stillness is power. In mystery is attraction. Let her see 80% of who you are, and leave the rest behind your eyes. Let her imagination fill in the gaps. Because what she creates in her mind will often be far more powerful than anything you could ever say. Mystery is magnetic. And humans don't chase what they fully understand. They chase what they can't quite grasp. This is how obsession begins. Not with oversharing, but with silence. Not with convincing, but with presence. So stop explaining yourself. Stop trying to be understood. Start shaping your image. Because in a world ruled by perception, image isn't just everything, it's the game. Be the lion and the fox. Every woman will test you, not to hurt you, but to see if you break. She'll shift her tone. She'll pull away. She'll go cold, then warm, then cold again. She'll say one thing and do another. And all of it is for one reason, to see one thing. Do you collapse, or do you hold? Most men don't even know they're being tested. They think she's confused, emotional, or hard to read. So they explain. They apologize. They try to fix things with words. And just like that, they lose the game. But centuries ago, Machiavelli gave the blueprint. A powerful man must be both a lion and a fox. The lion is power. He doesn't chase. He doesn't explain. He creates boundaries with his silence. He commands the room without raising his voice. The fox is intelligence. He doesn't react to bait. He doesn't reveal his hand. He listens and strikes when the moment is clean. And here's the trap most men fall into. If you're only the lion, strong, direct, forceful, she'll find a way to provoke you. And when you explode, she sees you as unstable. Your power becomes noise. If you're only the fox, clever, calm, calculating, she'll feel your charm, but not your spine. And without that fire, she won't trust you to lead. But if you are both, if she sees strength in your stillness and calculation in your silence, she won't know how to predict you. And that uncertainty, that tension, is what hooks her deeper than words ever could. When she's emotional, be the fox. Watch. Don't react. Let her tests crash against your calm. When she crosses a line, be the lion. Not with anger, not with threats, but with presence. A stillness that says, "This is my boundary, and I won't move." That's the man she respects. Not because you yell, but because you don't flinch. Not because you explain, but because you don't need to. She won't understand how to play you, because you don't play. You watch. You. Machiavelli once said, "Injuries must be inflicted all at once, but benefits should be given little by little." This isn't just political strategy, it's emotional control. And it works in modern relationships better than most realize. Here's the truth. When someone crosses your boundary, you don't react emotionally. You don't argue. You don't explain. You act. One clean, cold move. Silence. Distance. Withdrawal. No shouting. No teaching. No guilt tripping. Just the sudden loss of your presence. And that absence, it stings. Why? Because there's nothing to push against. She's left alone with her own thoughts, her own guilt. Her brain starts spinning. What did I do wrong? Why did he stop talking? Is he gone for good? And that silence becomes a mirror. Now, on the other side, comes the reward. But not all at once. When she's loyal, when she's warm, when she shows respect, you give her something small, rare, earned. A look, a subtle smile, a compliment that feels real. Then nothing. You don't shower her with love. You don't make her feel she has you. You train her nervous system like a casino. She doesn't know when the next reward is coming. So she keeps playing. This is what makes it addictive. Not the size of the reward, but the timing. Too many men reverse the formula. They punish too often. They reward too quickly. They become emotional, unstable, predictable. But you punish once. No warning. No drama. Just a line crossed and silence. And when she's back in your frame, you reward her slowly, just enough to keep her hungry. This is not cruelty. This is discipline. It's Machiavellian psychology wrapped in calm control. Because pain given fast is remembered, and pleasure given slow is craved. Now you're not just a man. You're a system she can't stop running. Watch her closely, then say one line. Most men look at a woman's body. A Machiavellian man watches her behavior. He's not distracted by beauty. He doesn't stare with. He notices how she speaks when she's with a man she respects, versus when she's with someone she controls. He tracks the subtle shifts, how her voice softens, how her gaze flickers, how her posture changes depending on who's watching. He pays attention to when she's performing and when she drops the act. No questions, no compliments, just presence. Because while other men try to enter her world superficially, he's already entered her psychology. And then, when the moment opens, not before, not after, he drops one line, calm, precise, without emotion. You speak differently when he's around. Or you laugh, but it doesn't feel real. No judgment, no tone, no smile, then silence. And in that moment, her reality shifts. Because that wasn't flattery. That wasn't something she could laugh off. That was truth she wasn't ready to hear. From a man who didn't ask for her approval. The female mind doesn't forget moments like that. It replays them. Wait, how did he know that? What else is he seeing? Was I that obvious? Has he been watching this whole time? Now she doesn't feel admired. She feels exposed. And not by force. Not by pressure. By presence. You didn't demand attention. You didn't fight for control. You simply watched what everyone else missed. And said what no one else dared. That's quiet power. It's not loud. It's not aggressive. It leaves echoes in her mind long after you've walked away. Because when you speak the one thing that touches a part of her no one noticed, you leave a mark. She will forget compliments. She will forget flings. But she won't forget the man who saw through her mask. Not to hurt her, but to show her you are not like the others. You don't chase her image. You see the system behind it. And once she feels that, you live in her thoughts. Even when you vanish from her sight. Control through absence. If you're always available, always responding, always present, you become predictable. And predictable is forget. But when you disappear, without warning, without drama, without explanation, you become unforgettable. Not because you punished her, not because you ignored her, but because you created a void. And the human mind cannot resist a void. It has to fill it. It has to understand what went missing and why. When you go silent, her mind begins to speak louder than ever. She replays your last conversation. She rewinds every glance, every pause, every word you didn't say. She searches for clues that aren't there. Did I do something wrong? Why hasn't he reached out? Was he just pretending to care? Now she's no longer enjoying your attention. She's haunted by your absence. And that's the key. Where most men over-explain, overgive, overstay. You vanish. Without a goodbye. Without a fight. Not to create pain, but to create space. And in that space, she starts imagining you. She starts remembering you. Not as you were, but as something larger, colder, more powerful. Now you're no longer a man. You're an unresolved question.